Hello, today we want to talk about accommodation. Accommodation is a word that means the place where you live. We want to talk about where you live, and that is to help you build more vocabulary so you can use new words to describe where you live. Where do you live? Do you live in the countryside, in a town, a village? If you live in a town, do you live in the suburbs? Is it a residential area or is it very busy? Do you live in a commuter town? Do people go through your town in the morning and in the evening during rush hour, after work or before work to go to where they have to get to? Do you live close to a train station? Where do you live? Tell us about the location. Tell us about where it is located. Where is it situated? Tell me about the area where you live. Where do you live? What type of accommodation do you live in? What type of property is it? Do you live in a house? Or do you live in a flat? What type of flat is it if you live in a flat? Do you live in a cottage or bungalow? You might be a student. So do you live on university campus? Do you live on campus? Are you in a hostel? Do you live in a student hostel? Where do you live? Do you live alone or with family? Do you live in shared accommodation? Shared accommodation. Do you live with your siblings? Siblings. Who do you live with? Flatmates. Have you got flatmates? What are they like? Hmm. Where do you live? What's close to where you live? Do you live in a wooded area? A wooded area. On a busy road? A busy road. Do you live in a cul-de-sac? Cul-de-sac is borrowed from French. Do you live in a cul-de-sac? Where do you live? Is it nice and quiet where you live? What are your neighbours like? Do you have any neighbours? Are they opposite you, directly in front of your property where you live? Are they adjacent to you, on either side? Have you got neighbours to your right? Or have you got neighbours to your left? Do you live in a flat? Do you live in a flat? Have you got upstairs neighbours? Have you got downstairs neighbours? Or are you on the ground floor? Ground floor. Where do you live? Do you live on the first floor? Is it a first floor property? Or do you live on the top floor? What is it like when it's windy? If you live on the top floor, what is it like in adverse weather? Where do you live? What sort of accommodation is it? Is it a two-bedroom property? A two-bed property? Two-bedroom or two-bed property? Is it a one-bed flat? Is it a studio flat? I used to live in a studio flat a long time ago on my own. Where do you live? What sort of accommodation is it? How many rooms have you got in the property where you live? How many rooms? Is it a house of multiple occupancy? A lot of students live in a HMO, a house of multiple occupancy, a HMO. If you're a student and you live in a hostel, is it shared? Where do you live? What sort of accommodation is it? Is it privately owned? Do you own it? Privately owned property. Are you renting? Are you renting from a landlord? In Britain, we do not differentiate between landlords and landladies because a landlady might be a lady who runs a pub. In Britain, a landlady might refer to a lady who owns a pub, a publican. So in Britain, we say, who is your landlord? Is your landlord the local council? Is your landlord the local council? Have you got a landlord? Are you a tenant? Are you a tenant? What sort of accommodation do you live in? Have you got a mortgage? A mortgage. Have you got a mortgage? What is a mortgage? Did you get a loan from a bank or a financial institution to pay for part of your property? And do you repay that on a monthly basis? Or not? Maybe not a monthly basis. Maybe you've got other arrangements. Have you got a mortgage? Do you pay a rent? Or do you own the property outright? What sort of accommodation do you live in? Let's talk about inside the property. In the property where you live, which is your favorite room? Mine is my bedroom. My favorite room is my bedroom. I can use my computer. I can watch the telly. Or I can sit and read a book. What sort of accommodation do you live in? And which is your favorite room? Is it your kitchen? Are you always potting about in your kitchen? Is it your living room? Don't tell me it's your bathroom. Which is your favorite room in your house? Have you got rooms outside the property as well? Do you have a shed? A shed? Have you got a garage? Have you got a loft? A loft? Have you got ghosts in your loft? What sort of accommodation do you live in? To round up, so it's under 12 minutes. What vocabulary have you learned? Can you answer my question, please? What sort of accommodation do you live in? Tell me the type of property. Is it a timber framed building? Is it made of bricks? Cement? Have you got a veranda? A veranda? Have you got a loft? A loft? Have you got a balcony? A balcony? Have you got a garage? A garage? In some American houses, there is a basement. A basement. Tell me about the property where you live. I'd like to hear from you. What have you got to today, ladies and gents? Do you have a nice and pleasant one?
Here is some more vocabulary to describe the area where you live. Let's talk about where you live using adjectives. Is it bleak? Is it gloomy and somber? Have you got flowers in your garden? Have you got a garden even? When you look out, can you see dull grey skies or old, dilapidated buildings? Is it bleak? Is it boring? Is your area boring, dull, and uninteresting? Is it creepy? Do you live in a haunted flat or a haunted house? Is your area crowded, filled to capacity? Do you have lots of people living there? Or is it deserted? Is it an abandoned and uninhabited area? Desolate even, empty and bleak? Is it dull? Is your area dull? Does anything ever happen there? Is it boring? Does it lack zest? It may well be that where you live is expensive, it's costly. Do you pay a high price to live where you do? Is your area horrifying? Is there a lot of crime in the neighborhood? Is it frightening? Is it disgusting? Or is it clean? Is it a nice neighborhood or not a very nice neighborhood? Is it nightmarish even? We're using adjectives to describe where you live, so you can add some more vocabulary to the words you know already. Is your area polluted? Do you have a rubbish collection day? Where do you go to dispose of your rubbish? How do you get rid of it? Is your area polluted? Is it run down? Is it in poor condition? Or is it touristy? Tell me about where you live.